Now that you've learned so many great ways to tag your site, both for Google Analytics events, as well as pushing additional event data to other marketing channels like AdWords, Facebook, etc., let's look at a few common issues that I've seen over the last year that impact data quality and data collection. Issue number one, the dreaded non-interaction hit. I won't tell you how many takes I've had trying to explain this. I'm over my life trying to explain this in a very succinct manner. I will try again. This is the last take that I'm just going to have to fight my way through it. But this is an event that's on every Google Analytics event type that we see here in GTM. It's a true false flag. Others like to, and I like to look at this as basically the bounce rate setting. So if this is set to false and you have that set to false on that scroll depth tag, then your bounce rate in GA is going to look something like this. A bounce, the way that Google defines a bounce is a session where you sent one hit to analytics and that's it. Most of us think of page view, so bounce rate equals one page view. However, now that we're sending additional event data for interaction on a page, there are many hits that you can be sending to GA that they could potentially use in the evaluation of, was this a session that bounced or not. If I just clear out my GA debugger, refresh this page, and you're going to see a page view hit, a product detail view hit, and if I scroll, you're going to see a couple scroll depth hits as well. If this setting was set to false, then bounce rate for that landing page and likely most of the site is going to be near 0%, because anytime a page loads, 3 events are executing right away, and Google is saying, okay, great, well, this session had 3 hits, even if I didn't do anything else except close out my browser and move on. Most of the time, the events within GA, we always recommend setting this to true. By default, our event builder always sets every tag that we're creating, we set this to true. And I'd recommend the same. Unless it's an event like an email sign up or something that you are really going to evaluate, if you are using bounce rate as a metric in your evaluation, the success of that landing page and actually getting someone farther down the funnel. Issue number 2, enabling enhanced e-commerce on your event tags. So this is the Google Analytics variable that's within GTM. This is where you're setting your tracking ID and you're assigning this variable to your different events, whether they're enhanced e-commerce events or just your click-based tracking events. When this variable that you are assigned has the enable enhanced e-commerce feature set to true and it's using the data layer, what's going to happen is every single event, so any single Google Analytics event that executes on the page is going to look to see what data exists in a data layer and attach that to the hit. As you can see here, this GA variable, I have both enhanced e-commerce tags assigned to this, and I also have a scroll depth tag assigned to this. If we go to the front end, let's clear our console out here and refresh the page. All right, so as we go through, we're going to see our page view event. So this page view ultimately executed. There really wasn't a data layer that was available at this time. Now we're going to go to our product detail view. So this is our product detail view that is executing, and we would expect this to grab the data layer. And now as we continue to scroll down and see the next event that executes, we see the event action is our scroll depth. So we have a scroll depth event of 25%, and it's also attaching a product detail hit or product detail enhanced e-commerce hit with it. And if we clear this out, scroll down on the page, you'll see 2 additional scroll depths triggered, and they are also attaching another product detail view hit with the scroll depth tag. So what will happen with this is you will have inflated numbers, whether it's your product detail views or add to carts. These will be inflated inside of Google Analytics. So what you're left with is inaccurate enhanced e-commerce numbers, inaccurate percentages if you're looking at ratios of add to carts or product views, etc. And it's very easy to miss that just because it's such a small setting. So normally what we recommend is If we look at our Google Analytics setting here, if we are assigning this variable to a mixed set of tags, we will actually have this disabled by default. So let's save this. And then on the enhanced e-commerce events that we actually want to attach the data layer to, we will select overriding. So we'll override the default settings from this variable. We'll go down to e-commerce. We'll set this to true to use the data layer. So we do that for all of the enhanced e-commerce events. And then the scroll depth tag, we actually leave this as default. So we won't override the settings. You might be asking why I do it this way. Is there's really, you're going to have a max of maybe 7 to 10 enhanced e-commerce events that you're going to have running across the site, and they shouldn't change a whole lot. Where you might have 20, 30, 40 custom behavior events that are running on the site, and if you have multiple people that are working in GTM, they may not know that they have to select this and disable enhanced e-commerce from running. So this one is very common, very easy to get caught in. I'm going to put this in preview mode just so you can see exactly how this happens. So let's reload the page here. And we'll see we have the top of the product page. Let's just go to our data layer. So as we work our way up the events, you'll see the data layer beginning to grow. And now we have our product detail view. So this is where the product detail view data is being created and built out as part of the data layer on this page. We can see our tags that executed on this event. And now let's go to our scroll depth, where we have our scroll depth tag that executed. And let's look at the data layer that exists when this particular event triggered. We can see the enhanced e-commerce detail view is still there. So that's why this was ultimately attached to the scroll depth event and sent along with the scroll depth action. Issue number 3, this is more of a reporting and analysis type of issue. This is case sensitivity of your event actions or event categories. So depending on how your site is set up for mobile versus desktop, this is a very common scenario where you're going to have the same event action, so pajamas, and then another set of these. Same event action, one is uppercase, one is as it's set on the tag. You might be wondering, why is it coming in? Many times you're going to see things that are automatically capitalized on mobile or vice versa. So you end up with the same action, multiple rows. You would think the fix for this would be to automatically set all of your tags. So if you're going into our behavior event tag here, it's just set everything to be lowercase like we see here. But really the true fix for this is going to be inside of your view settings. You go to filters, you add a new filter, and we are going to select a lowercase filter. So in this case, we'd lowercase event action, lowercase event category, and event label. That way, no matter how the data is being pushed from the user's browser, GA is automatically going to lowercase that, and it fixes the issue for you. Issue type number 4, syntax errors. I'm going to force a syntax error in my data layer snippet here. We're going to save the page. And you'll see in our console here, close out our leave preview mode. So if we go to our console here, and we'll clear this out, we now have a few events that executed, but we actually have a syntax error, so our unexpected token. So you'll recall when we were looking at this page previously, reloaded it, we saw the product detail view event trigger. We have the syntax error. And this will actually link exactly to where the error is, so you can see what the error is. And ultimately, as we scroll through all of the other events, you'll see there's no product detail view hit that ultimately executed. So at this point, that syntax error that existed in the data layer broke the product, ultimately the GTM product detail view event from executing. So now, even though I have a page view event and I have my scroll depth events, I don't have that product detail view event because I have a syntax error in my data layer. Thus, any tag that was dependent on that product detail view trigger is no longer firing. And really, unless you're paying close attention to it, you may not know this for a few days or potentially a few weeks. So this leads into issue number 5 is new code breaks any reporting or analysis. In this one, there's different potential monitoring that you can set up, but there's also, I would say, a very underutilized feature within analytics where there's a custom alert setting where you can actually create an alert. So I have an example here of add to carts dropped by 80%. And this is alerting me when sessions percent decreases by more than 80% compared to the previous day. So you can create these alerts, especially for your big sessions, page views, revenue, etc. Create these alerts, and that way you can get a proactive notice if something is deployed that breaks some tracking that you might have quite a few tags tied to, and you'll know that hopefully within a day or so versus having this spill out over multiple weeks. Issue type number 6 is when GTM is installed twice on a page, thus resulting in duplicate data being sent. Easy way to look for this is if you view your source code, and we'll do a quick search. So just do Control or Command F, and you look for GTM, and you should see a no script version and a regular script version. So if you were to do your Control F, and you'd see GTM, so you can even look for your GTM code here. If you saw this 3 or 4 or potentially more times in the source code, that means you have GTM implemented twice. And that will likely result in duplicate tracking, duplicate tag data being sent to either GA or marketing channels. While we're in here, there's another common issue that we've seen. It's the incorrect GTM container ID, or if we actually go into analytics and you're using an incorrect Google Analytics property ID. Sometimes you might have a staging property or potentially different geo properties. The tracking ID here, we've seen this be the wrong ID, or it's set to like a dummy account ID. It's attached to multiple events, but that data ultimately doesn't make its way to your analytics account because it has the wrong tracking ID. Last but not least, if we look at issue number 8 is sort order. So let's put GTM back into preview mode here. And I have the expectation that on my product pages, I am expecting Facebook to fire before Twitter. So when I'm looking at the sort order of all of my tags that are executing on my site, if you recall in the previous episode, we were looking at network panel and tracking how tags are ultimately executing in our network panel. I want to be sure that Facebook is always firing first and Twitter is loading and executing after Facebook, because I really want to minimize any delay in my Facebook pixel from executing. So reloading the page here, you'll see I have my Facebook site-wide pixel, and actually I need to fix my syntax error. All right, so we can actually see the product detail view event did not trigger, so my product detail events did not execute on this page. If I reload, we should see this working again. There we go. So the syntax error is fixed, and now we can see the product detail view event. So on the product detail view event, I see my Facebook product view fired, but if I were to look in my network panel and reload, so we'll look at our Twitter. So we have our Twitter script ultimately fired. You can see it queued up at 873 milliseconds, so just under a second. And if I look at Facebook, we'll see that this started, for a product view, this started at 1.75 seconds. So we might be wondering why or how can Twitter be executing ahead of Facebook? If I go over to GTM and let's take a look at our Facebook tag. So we have our Facebook site-wide pixel, which we saw that executing just a little bit ahead of Twitter. This is set at 1,000. And we have our product view. So our Facebook product view, this does not have a tag firing priority on it. So one fix could be adding a priority of, let's say, 100 to this, where if we look at our Twitter tag, this does not have a priority on it either. So if I refresh one more time, it will clear out. All right, so here is our page view, and we see the page view is still at 1.65 seconds now. And we'll look at Twitter, and this still started at still less than a second. So why is that? Why is Twitter still firing ahead of Facebook, even though I've set the priority higher on the tag? Our next step is to start stepping through the events. First one, page view. We can see Twitter is executing first before our Facebook product view. So as GTM is going through and loading, you'll see all these different events that are executing. 6 events later is when our Facebook product view event is associated to the product detail view trigger. And that trigger is happening after our first event, which is the page view, which is where Twitter is assigned. So if we wanted to ultimately fix this, we can see window loaded comes after product detail view. If we go into our Twitter page view, and we will create a window loaded. Trigger configuration, window loaded, all pages. So now if we save, refresh, we should see that Twitter is now going to execute after Facebook. So inspect, go to our network panel, and we'll do a refresh. Now let's look at our Twitter. So here is our Twitter tag that fired. And now this is at 3 seconds, so 3.36 seconds. And we can see our view content for our Facebook tag that's starting to execute, starting at 3.21. So our general page view tag for Facebook is at 1.27 seconds. Our view content for Facebook is 3.21. And Twitter is just a bit after. So 3.36 seconds. So that is a very common issue, and there's really the 3 things to look at is looking at your sort order within GTM, so making sure that you have your priority setting if everything is firing on the same trigger. And then next is actually stepping through the events, so you can see just one small change of when we are executing the tag or triggering the tag. We were able to complete my goal of having all of my Facebook tags fire before Twitter. So those are 8 common issues. If you have any other issues or good ones to share, please send them along to me. And hopefully this will help you prevent some catastrophic issues to your data collection and data reporting. And hopefully we don't have any other big ones that pop up soon.